Most people die with their dreams still inside them, not because they weren't capable, but because they kept waiting for the perfect moment. Let me tell you something, the perfect moment does not exist. If you don't decide to move now, your future will be a repeat of your excuses, and that's not the life you were born for. Right now, some of you are sitting here thinking, I'll start tomorrow, I'll do it when I'm ready, I'll wait until the timing feels right, but let me wake you up. The clock is ticking and life doesn't pause for your hesitation. How many opportunities have you already missed because you were waiting? How many times have you looked back and said, I should have done it then? This speech is going to challenge you, maybe even shake you, because if you stay with me until the end, you won't just hear words, you'll feel a shift. A fire will ignite inside of you, and you'll realize that the time you've been waiting for is not coming. The time is now, not tomorrow, not next year, not someday. The moment you choose is the moment your life changes. So listen closely. I'm about to give you 6 powerful keys that will break your excuses, fuel your action, and make someday today. Perfection is the enemy of progress, because perfection is a moving target that no one has ever truly hit, and yet millions of people spend their entire lives chasing it as if it were attainable. You tell yourself you can't start until the business plan is flawless, until the timing is ideal, until you've gathered every resource, every connection, and every ounce of confidence you think you need. But perfection is a trap. It convinces you that waiting is wisdom, when in reality, waiting is just disguised fear. Think about the countless ideas that never made it into reality because someone kept tweaking them, kept revising, kept pushing back the launch date. Perfection has killed more dreams than failure ever could, because failure at least moves you forward, teaches you, shapes you, and gives you the feedback that makes you better. But perfection locks you into a cage of hesitation where nothing ever leaves the ground. The world doesn't reward the person who waits the longest to act. It rewards the person who has the courage to take the first imperfect step and then improve along the way. Consider the smartphone in your hand right now. The version you own is not the first version that was released, and the company that built it didn't wait until the product was flawless to put it in the market. They launched, they tested, they failed in small ways, they collected feedback, and then they refined again and again, releasing new versions. Imagine if they had waited for perfection. There would be no product, no evolution, no innovation, because perfection would have paralyzed progress. This applies not only to technology, but to your personal life, your goals, your career, your health. If you keep waiting for the perfect diet plan, the perfect workout, the perfect day to start, years will pass and you'll realize the perfect time never showed up. Progress belongs to the person who says, I'll start now, messy, uncertain, unpolished, but I'll start. When you demand perfection before action, what you're really doing is giving yourself permission to procrastinate under the disguise of preparation. Preparation is necessary, but preparation without execution becomes self-sabotage. You've heard the phrase analysis paralysis. You analyze, you research, you gather information endlessly, convincing yourself that once you have just a little more knowledge, you'll finally be ready. But readiness is not a condition you wait for. It's a decision you make. The moment you act, you are ready, because it is the act itself that makes you capable. Think of the child learning to walk. If that child waited until they were sure they wouldn't fall, they would never take a step. They fall, they stumble, they get bruised, but with each attempt, they get stronger, steadier, more confident, and eventually they walk. Adults forget that truth and let fear of imperfection keep them crawling when they were born to run. Perfection seduces you with the promise of certainty, but certainty is not real. The only guarantee in life is uncertainty. You can prepare for years, line up every detail, and still life will throw you something unexpected. If you keep waiting for perfection, what you're really waiting for is control over the uncontrollable. And while you wait, opportunities are being seized by someone who is less prepared but more willing to act. History is full of examples of people who weren't the smartest, weren't the most talented, but they were the boldest. They took imperfect action, and their willingness to move gave them an edge over those still waiting to be perfect. Action is the great separator. It distinguishes the dreamers who stay stuck from the doers who make history. Look at your own life. Think back to something you once wanted badly but never pursued because the timing wasn't perfect, the circumstances weren't right, or you told yourself you weren't ready. How much time did you lose? How much energy did you waste crafting excuses under the cover of perfection? And now ask yourself, if you had started back then, imperfect and unsure, where would you be today? The truth is, you would be ahead, maybe not perfect, but stronger, wiser, more accomplished, and further than where you are right now. Every step you refused to take was a step that could have brought you closer to your goal. Every delay was a decision to remain the same. Progress is not born from perfection. Progress is born from action, from trial and error, from falling forward and rising stronger. The people you admire, the innovators, the leaders, the creators, they didn't wait until they were perfect. They started with nothing but courage and a willingness to look foolish, to make mistakes, to learn in public. That's why they succeeded. The lesson is clear. Perfection is not your friend. It is your enemy. It whispers to you that you're not ready, that you need to wait, that one day conditions will align. But the truth is that day will never come. The only time you have is now, and the only path to progress is imperfect action. Fear will never leave. So waiting for it to disappear before you act is like waiting for the ocean to stop producing waves before you decide to swim. Fear is a natural signal, a built-in survival mechanism, but it becomes a prison when you interpret it as a stop sign rather than a green light. You've been conditioned to think that fear means danger, but more often than not, fear means growth. It means you are stepping outside of the comfort zone you've lived in for years. That discomfort is not a warning to retreat, it's an invitation to expand. Yet most people misread it. They say, I'll start once I'm not scared anymore, and in doing so, they put their dreams on permanent hold. The truth is, courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite it. Every person you admire, every leader, every entrepreneur, every creator has felt fear just as intensely as you do, but they understood that fear is not the enemy. In fact, fear is proof you are alive, you are stretching, you are on the edge of something meaningful. Think about the very first time you stood on a stage, went to a job interview, confessed your feelings to someone, or stepped into a new environment. Your heart raced, your palms sweated, your thoughts told you 1,000 reasons why it could go wrong, and yet when you stepped through the fear, something powerful happened. You grew. Even if you stumbled, even if you didn't get the outcome you wanted, you became stronger than you were before. Fear didn't vanish, but it transformed into experience, into resilience, into wisdom. That's the secret. Fear only evolves when you confront it. If you keep avoiding it, fear remains your master, but if you face it, it becomes your teacher. Imagine someone who dreams of launching a business but keeps telling themselves, I'll wait until I feel confident enough. 10 years pass, and the business still doesn't exist because confidence never arrives without action. Now compare that to the person who launches the same business, trembling, uncertain, and terrified of failing. They make mistakes, yes, but those mistakes give them feedback. They learn how to sell, how to market, how to build relationships. Each mistake chips away at the fear, and over time, the very thing they feared becomes second nature. Fear didn't disappear before they acted. It diminished because they acted. Confidence is not the prerequisite for action. It is the byproduct of it. The mind has a sneaky way of exaggerating fear. It tells you stories about worst-case scenarios, about humiliation, rejection, loss, and pain. Most of those stories never come true, but they feel so real that you stop moving. And here's the irony. The thing you fear most loses its power the moment you face it. If you fear speaking, the act of speaking weakens the fear. If you fear rejection, the act of asking, even if rejected, reduces the sting. Avoidance makes fear stronger, but action makes fear weaker. Fear feeds on hesitation, but it starves in the presence of boldness. Think of the great achievers of history. They didn't walk into their defining moments free of fear. They walked in shaking, uncertain, questioning themselves, but they did it anyway. Nelson Mandela admitted to being afraid before speeches, before facing opposition, but he said he learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Every athlete before a championship game feels fear of failure. Every artist before presenting their work to the world feels fear of rejection. Every entrepreneur before investing their savings into an idea feels fear of loss. Yet they all chose to act with fear rather than wait for fear to disappear. That decision is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Your fear is not a signal that you should stop. It is evidence that you are about to grow. If you feel nervous, scared, uncertain, that is not the universe telling you to hold back. That is the universe telling you, pay attention. Something big is on the other side. But you have to move. You can't think your way past fear. You can only act your way through it. That means making the call when your hands are trembling, saying yes to the opportunity when your voice is shaking, pressing forward when everything inside of you screams to retreat. And every time you do, fear loses its grip on you just a little more. The tragedy is not that fear exists. The tragedy is that so many people let fear dictate the direction of their lives. They choose safety over significance, comfort over calling, certainty over growth. They stay small because fear convinces them that small is safe, but safety is an illusion because staying still carries its own risks. The risk of regret, the risk of never knowing what could have been, the risk of dying with your potential locked inside. Fear will never leave, but if you learn to carry it with you instead of letting it control you, it becomes fuel, it sharpens you, it wakes you up, It forces you to rise to a higher standard. The choice is not whether you will feel fear. You will. The choice is whether you will obey it or overcome it. Time will not wait for you because time is the one resource that cannot be renewed, replaced, or recovered once it's gone. And yet most people treat it as if it will always be there. Every minute you hesitate, every day you postpone, every year you delay is gone forever, slipping through your fingers while you convince yourself you'll start tomorrow. The danger is that tomorrow turns into next week into next year, and before you know it, decades have passed, and the dreams you once carried have turned into regrets. Time does not pause to accommodate your fears, your doubts, or your excuses. The clock ticks forward whether you are moving or not, whether you are building or not, whether you are pursuing your purpose or letting it fade into the background. The harsh truth is that you are not promised another day, and yet so many people live as if life is endless, as if they have infinite chances to make their move, when in reality the opportunity is right now, or it may never come again. Think about how life works. You cannot stop the sun from rising and setting. You cannot stop the seasons from changing. You cannot negotiate with time and ask it to wait until you're ready. The student who delays studying discovers the exam still arrives on schedule. The person who delays starting a business sees the market move on without them. The individual who postpones telling someone they love them sometimes finds it's too late because that person has moved on or passed away. Time is merciless in its movement. It does not ask for permission. It does not slow down to give you comfort, and it does not reward hesitation. It rewards those who act in alignment with it, those who understand the urgency of now and take advantage of it before the moment passes. Consider opportunities in your life that have already slipped by. Maybe there was a job you wanted to apply for but told yourself you weren't ready, and by the time you decided, the role was filled. Maybe there was a chance to invest in something, to step into something, to create something, and you hesitated because you thought you had time, but someone else acted quicker and claimed it. Opportunity is not loyal. It does not wait for the hesitant. It passes to the bold. Time punishes indecision by giving the prize to the one who moves. That's why you cannot afford to waste it. You don't have the luxury of endless tomorrows. Every second you spend waiting is a second you never get back. The most successful people are not the ones with the most talent or resources. They are the ones with the deepest respect for time. They understand that life is not about having more hours, but about maximizing the hours you do have. They wake up with urgency. They take risks. They move when others hesitate. They know that waiting for the right time is a myth because time itself is never perfect. There will always be challenges, always be uncertainty, always be reasons to delay, but those who respect time use it anyway. They move in the midst of imperfection, and by moving, they create opportunities that those who waited will never see. Look at your own life through the lens of time. How many years have already passed where you promised yourself you'd change, but you're still in the same place? How many mornings have you woken up saying, I'll start tomorrow, only to repeat the same sentence for months or years? That is how time steals from you, not all at once, but gradually, through repetition of delay, through small decisions to wait, through subtle compromises that seem harmless but accumulate into wasted years. The pain of regret is always heavier than the pain of discipline. Regret weighs you down because you cannot change time that has already passed. You can only mourn it. Discipline may sting in the moment, but it moves you forward, and forward is the only direction time ever moves. Think about mortality, not as a morbid thought, but as a wake-up call. You don't know how many days you have left. You don't know when your last opportunity will arrive. If you live as if you have endless time, you live carelessly. But when you live with urgency, with the awareness that time is limited, you treat each moment as precious, each decision as impactful, each opportunity as sacred. You stop wasting hours on distractions and excuses because you realize those hours are life itself. Your life is nothing more than a collection of moments, and how you spend those moments determines the story of your existence. The truth is, if you don't choose how to use your time, someone else will choose for you, and you will spend your life building their dreams while yours collect dust. The irony is that people are more careful with money than with time, even though money can be regained and time cannot. You think twice before wasting $1, but you waste hours scrolling, hesitating, procrastinating without realizing those hours are priceless. If someone stole $10 from you, you'd be angry. But if they waste 10 hours of your life with nonsense, you often accept it casually, not realizing that time is infinitely more valuable. The wealthy, the influential, the fulfilled, they understand this. They protect their time fiercely because they know once it's gone forever. You cannot rewind, you cannot replace, you cannot replenish. That's why time is life's greatest equalizer. Everyone gets 24 hours, but how you use them defines everything. Action creates clarity, not the other way around, because clarity is not something you discover while sitting still, overthinking, or waiting for perfect certainty to fall from the sky. Clarity is forged in the fires of movement. The illusion most people live under is that once they are perfectly clear, then they will act. They believe once they know the whole path, once they see every step, once they are completely certain of the outcome, only then will it be safe to move forward. But that is not how life works. Life reveals itself step by step only as you walk the path. The map does not appear until you take the first step. The answers do not show up while you are waiting. They reveal themselves as a direct response to your actions. That is why waiting for clarity before acting is one of the greatest lies people tell themselves, and it's why so many stay stuck for years in the same place, paralyzed by indecision and overanalysis, while those who move discover the direction they were searching for. Think of a sailor on a vast ocean with no visible land. If he waits for the entire coastline to appear before raising the sails, he will drift aimlessly forever. But if he begins to move, even imperfectly, the currents and winds guide him, landmarks appear, and eventually the destination becomes clearer. The same principle applies in your life. You cannot see the entire coastline of your future from the harbor of hesitation. You have to launch into the unknown, because only in motion do you gain perspective. Only in the process of doing do you discover what works and what doesn't. That discovery builds clarity, and clarity shapes new action, which brings more clarity. It's a cycle, and the cycle cannot begin until you move. Many people disguise their fear as the pursuit of clarity. They say they are waiting for direction, seeking guidance, or thinking it through. But what they are really doing is hiding. They want guarantees before they risk, certainty before they leap. But life does not hand out guarantees. Life rewards movement because action produces data, and data produces insight. If you start a business, you may not know exactly how to attract customers, but by launching, by making calls, by failing in small ways, you gather information that reveals the next move. If you sit in your room for years waiting to know how to build the perfect business, you will still be sitting there years later with nothing but theories. Action cuts through the fog. Clarity is not a light you wait for. It's a light you ignite. Imagine standing in a dark room. You don't sit there waiting for the room to light itself. You take out a match, you strike it, and the flame reveals what's around you. Each step you take reveals more of the room. Similarly, action is the match that reveals the path. When you decide to move, when you take even a small step, you see things you couldn't see before. You gain feedback you couldn't have predicted. Opportunities and challenges appear that were invisible from the sidelines. Without action, you are blind. With action, you see more than you ever could by waiting. Consider how people discover their passion or purpose. Most of them don't sit around and suddenly become clear about what they were born to do. They try things, they step into experiences, they pursue opportunities that might interest them. Through trial and error, through success and failure, they discover what lights them up and what drains them. That clarity came only because they were willing to move without certainty. If you wait until you are clear before you pursue your purpose, you will never begin, because clarity is born in motion, not in stillness. Think about relationships as well. No one ever knows with absolute clarity how a relationship will unfold before they step into it. If people waited for full certainty before committing, no one would ever build love, marriage, or families. What creates clarity is not the sitting and wondering, but the choosing and living. The same applies to every area of life: career, health, creativity, personal growth. You gain clarity by engaging with the process, not by spectating from the sidelines. What paralyzes so many is the belief that mistakes equal failure, when in reality, mistakes are the very building blocks of clarity. Every time you stumble, every time something doesn't work, you learn something invaluable that refines your direction. Failure is feedback, and feedback is clarity. The people who have the clearest sense of purpose and direction are rarely the ones who got it right the first time. They are the ones who are willing to get it wrong often enough to finally get it right. By acting, they created the clarity that others are still waiting for. So the principle is simple but transformative. You do not act because you are clear. You become clear because you act. Clarity does not precede movement. It follows it. Waiting for the perfect plan is nothing more than an excuse to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty. And yet, once you embrace action, even imperfect, shaky, uncertain action, the fog lifts and the next step appears. It's like headlights on a car in the night. You cannot see the entire road, but as you move, the lights reveal enough for you to keep going. If you stay parked, you see nothing. But if you drive, the road reveals itself one stretch at a time. Life is exactly the same. Small steps beat waiting for big leaps because transformation is rarely the product of one dramatic act. It is almost always the result of consistent compounding action over time. People paralyze themselves with the idea that they must create massive change in one single move, so they wait for the moment when everything aligns, when they can take a giant leap that will transform their lives instantly. But that moment rarely comes, and the weight of waiting for it becomes another excuse to do nothing. The truth is that success is built from small, deliberate steps taken daily, steps that may feel insignificant in the moment, but accumulate into extraordinary results. A single workout doesn't transform your body, but hundreds of workouts strung together create fitness. One phone call doesn't build a business, but hundreds of calls stacked day after day build momentum, customers, and growth. One page written doesn't make a book, but one page written every day creates a manuscript that can inspire the world. Small steps look unimpressive at first, but their power lies in consistency and in their ability to build momentum. When you believe you must take a giant leap, you often end up overwhelmed. The goal feels too heavy, the distance too far, and the pressure too intense, so you freeze. You tell yourself you'll wait until you're stronger, smarter, or more prepared, but in reality, the scale of the leap intimidates you into paralysis. That's why the philosophy of small steps is so freeing. You don't need to build the entire staircase in one day, you just need to place one brick. You don't need to conquer the mountain in a single climb, you just need to take one step upward. Each small step is manageable, and each one builds confidence. Over time, those small steps compound into massive change. The weight of the leap disappears, replaced by the steady rhythm of progress. Think about how compound interest works in finance. You don't see the growth overnight, but with small, consistent deposits, the results become exponential over time. Life works the same way. The deposits you make into your health, your career, your relationships, your personal growth may seem small, almost invisible at first, but with consistency, they create breakthroughs that feel sudden to the outside world. What looks like an overnight success is almost always the product of small, invisible steps taken for years. The actor who wins an award likely spent years auditioning, training, and being rejected. The athlete who breaks records likely spent years practicing when no one was watching. The entrepreneur who builds a thriving company likely spent years making small, grinding decisions before the breakthrough came. Small steps are the invisible foundation of visible success. A practical example of this is fitness. People often delay starting because they think they must go from doing nothing to spending 2 hours in the gym every day. That leap feels impossible, so they procrastinate. But if they simply started with 10 minutes of exercise daily, that small step would not only build habit, but also gradually increase capacity. Over months, 10 minutes could turn into 30, then 60, and eventually the consistency creates a transformation far more sustainable than the leap they were waiting for. The same applies to learning. You don't need to read 50 books this month. If you read 10 pages a day, you'll finish a dozen books by the end of the year, and those ideas will reshape your mind. The power of small steps is that they are accessible immediately, and because they are accessible, they are sustainable. Small steps also create momentum, and momentum is a force far more valuable than waiting for inspiration or motivation. Once you start moving, even in the smallest way, you generate energy that pulls you forward. Taking one small action reduces resistance for the next action. Momentum transforms effort from something you force into something that begins to carry you. Waiting for a big leap requires constant motivation, which often fades quickly, but small steps create habits, and habits are stronger than motivation. You don't need to be motivated to take a small step. You just need to be disciplined enough to do it, and discipline compounds into momentum that sustains you long after motivation dies out. Another critical truth about small steps is that they build identity. Every time you take a small step toward your goal, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. If you want to be healthy, every workout, no matter how small, reinforces that identity. If you want to be wealthy, every smart financial choice reinforces that identity. If you want to be confident, every small moment of courage reinforces that identity. Waiting for a big leap keeps the identity in the future, out of reach, while small steps bring it into the present. Identity is not formed by massive acts done once. It is formed by small actions repeated until they become who you are. Waiting for a leap keeps your dreams distant. Taking small steps brings them close, makes them real, and proves to you that progress is possible. You don't need to see the entire staircase, you just need to take the next step. Every small step builds momentum, strengthens identity, compounds into growth, and over time delivers results that look impossible from where you started. The irony is that by committing to small steps, you often end up achieving leaps bigger than the ones you originally dreamed of, because consistent action compounds in ways you can't predict. Small steps may feel modest, but they are the secret weapon of all lasting success. Your future self is begging you to act today because every decision you make in this moment creates the foundation for who you will become, and every delay steals from the life you could be living. The person you want to be 5 years from now is not built in the future. They are built today through the choices you make, the actions you take, and the discipline you enforce in the present. Too often, people imagine their future selves as stronger, wealthier, healthier, and more confident, but they forget that without action today, that future version will never exist. The truth is, the life you want is not waiting for you down the road. It is waiting for you to begin building it right now. The voice inside that whispers, "Start now," is not random. It is your future self calling out to you, pleading with you not to waste another day because each day lost is a piece of your future stolen. Imagine yourself looking back 10 years from now. Will you thank yourself for the bold moves you made today, or will you curse yourself for letting fear and hesitation steal another decade? Time passes regardless, and the only difference between the version of you who lives with pride and the version who lives with regret is the action you take in the present. Think of the countless people who at the end of their lives say things like, "I wish I had started sooner. I wish I had taken more risks. I wish I had believed in myself when I was younger." That regret comes from ignoring the call of their future selves. They chose comfort in the moment and sacrificed the greatness they could have built. Your future self is begging you not to make the same mistake, not to look back and realize you had the chance but never acted on it. Every time you choose to wait, you create a gap between who you are and who you could be. That gap grows with every excuse, every delay, every postponed decision. But every time you choose to act, even in small ways, you close the gap. You bring yourself closer to the person you dream of becoming. Imagine your future self standing in front of you, stronger, wiser, fulfilled, and full of gratitude, saying, "Thank you for starting when it was uncomfortable. Thank you for pushing through the fear. Thank you for doing the work even when no one was watching." That version of you cannot exist without the choices you make today. You don't become them by waiting. You become them by acting now. Think about health as an example. If you want to be strong and energetic 5 years from now, it won't happen because of a single workout in the future. It will happen because you started taking care of your body today. If you want financial freedom, it won't appear magically later. It will come from the choices you make with money today. If you want deep, meaningful relationships, they won't suddenly materialize years from now. They will grow because you invested time, effort, and love today. The future self you admire is simply the compound interest of the actions you take right now. What you do today echoes into tomorrow, multiplies into next year, and defines the rest of your life. One of the greatest illusions is believing you can keep putting things off and still arrive at the future you dream of. The reality is that your future self is not shaped by intentions or dreams. It is shaped by consistent action. You cannot think your way into a different future. You must act your way there. If you ignore this, your future self will carry the weight of missed opportunities, wasted time, and regret. But if you embrace it, your future self will carry the reward of courage, persistence, and fulfillment. Which one do you want waiting for you? The choice is being made right now, whether you realize it or not. Picture two paths. On one path, you continue to delay, to wait for the perfect time, to let fear dictate your decisions. 5 years down that path, you wake up in the same place or worse, feeling older but not wiser, filled with the sting of regret. On the other path, you decide today that waiting ends here. You begin to act, even imperfectly, and step by step, you move closer to the vision you hold of your future. 5 years down this path, you stand taller, prouder, and grateful to your past self for refusing to settle. The difference between these two futures is not luck, not talent, not circumstance. It is simply the willingness to act today.